Hello all. We're taking a look at a leftover from Oddity week that I researched but never actually recorded a video for in the form of the Diasio D962. Finishing up the research and scripting for the IMSA Year in Review video is taking a lot more time than I anticipated, so we're using leftovers. But I hope you'll be pleased with the end product when I get around to finishing it hopefully in the next week. This was also the only vehicle intended for Oddity Week that I've actually had the opportunity to see in person, so I'll pepper in a couple of my own shots where relevant. What qualified this car for Oddity Week, in my eye, is the vehicle's styling, which ostensibly is indicated or intended to be a 3/4 scale replica of the Porsche 962, and yes, I did say replica with intent there, but to me it more looks like it harks back to a general bevy of Group C and Group 5 design features with maybe even some elements of the first generation of Daytona prototypes, while still not being sufficiently definite in any of its styling features as to run into any licensing issues despite the vehicle's name. Okay. Built from the early 2000s to at least as late as 2016 as the brainchild of one Mr. Chris Diasio, the D962 is nevertheless a dedicated race car with a steel tube frame chassis that supports fiberglass body panels. Most who take it racing seem to choose liveries from the 70s or 80s or a monocolor paint job, but obviously that choice is entirely up to the owner. The design had a remarkable amount of modularity to fit numerous power plant and setup needs, with some owners reporting the ability to make simple modifications to fit extended range fuel tanks, entirely new and originally unintended suspension setups, and different bodywork with comparative ease. Though power plants were flexible, most of the Diasios produced seem to have been initially equipped as standard with a mid-mounted Yamaha or Hayabusa 1000 engine, originally developed for various power sports applications, or in the case of the Hayabusa, obviously motorcycles. But later, and more frequently, they seem to have been sold with a similarly located Mazda 13B REW Wankel engine in either naturally aspirated or turbocharged versions, with the naturally aspirated engines good for somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 horsepower, and the turbocharged ones pushing closer to 350 horsepower, although either of these could be increased further with different add-ons. A Hewland 6-speed sequential gearbox with limited slip differential was responsible for sending this power to the rear wheels, and since the car only weighed something in the neighborhood of 1,300 pounds or 600 kilograms in dry weight, this was plenty of performance range for a new racer or a veteran just looking to have a bit of fun on the weekends. Initially, the cars were eligible for competition in SCCA and NASA events, not the Space Agency, although that would be interesting. They have plenty of runways for hosting motorsports, and that would be really cool to go racing at the same time as a rocket launch. I'm sure there are safety concerns that would prevent such an instance, but, let's dream. They are also now eligible for entry in HSR races, which is where I've seen them in the past, and they generally put on a good showing and attract a reasonable amount of curious attention besides, because, again, it is a rather unusual, bordering on unique-looking thing. The Diasio 962 also received praise for its low running costs, which were facilitated by its lightweight construction, good build quality, relatively small wheels, which saved huge amounts of money on tires, and well-tested components. More recent upgrades to the vehicle have also made carbon fiber bodywork and aero packages available, enabling the fitment of air jacks, and the last update broke cover in 2016, and an example photo is shown here. I haven't been able to find any information about whether or not any D962s have been produced since then, but there are at least a couple of dozen floating around the US and showing up at the aforementioned historic events, SCCA races, and actually perhaps in a grocery store parking lot near you if you happen to live in a state with extremely lackadaisical DMV employees. Florida, sometimes, certain counties at least, is one of these states. Anyway, there is one for sale in Florida on Facebook Marketplace at the moment, listing linked in the description below in case any of you have, I think it's $25,000 canoodling about and looking for a new home. And there is at least one entered in the upcoming Daytona Classic 24-hour race at the beginning of next month. Other interesting or noteworthy entries at the time of recording include at least 2 Lola T70s, Red Bull Formula One Chief Technical Officer Adrian Newey with a Mark I Ford GT40, the Briggs Cunningham-designed Cadillac Le Monstre, or at least a replica thereof, mentioned in the Le Mans Museum video. Go watch that if you haven't seen it. A Ferrari 333 SP, and 3, so far, of the recently retired Cadillac DPI VRs. Haven't seen the Nissan DPI that has been making appearances at a few other historic events the past year, nor have I seen the Acura ARX-05 that failed to sell on Bring a Trailer last year, so it's entirely possible that Honda Performance Development didn't end up selling it and still have it. Time will tell. Anyway, should be an excellent weekend, and that is going to be my call to action, not featuring the 3 sacred words of YouTube for this week's video.
Like, comment, subscribe.
If you have the availability, both in terms of time and geography, try and make it to either the Daytona Classic or Sebring Historics, which is the first weekend of December this year. They're wonderful events and are highly underattended, especially compared to the IMSA races. I plan to go to both of them. Not sure if I'll go the full 4-day session for Daytona, but Sebring Historics has been a bit of a burgeoning family tradition since COVID, and is always a good time. We typically camp down at Turn 7 if anybody listening to this video shows up and would like to come by and have a bevy. I would say, specific to beer, but we also have wine, liquor, etc., as well as water and soft drinks. Other beverage choices are available. As always, thank you for your time this evening or whenever you are watching, and I wish you all a good night and a good tomorrow.